Be sure to check out Rob Plays. There you can hang out with me while we play video games and talk about life stuff. So what I want to do here is have a discussion about static. And what I'm hoping is that at the end of all this, not only will you stop asking me to make this video in the comments, but you'll also have a strong understanding of his character and why it was that he was made. So in 1993, in order to rectify an underrepresentation of minorities in mainstream comic books, a group of African-American comic creators, including Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, and Derek Dingle, founded Milestone Media, a company that would go on to launch a line of comics that featured African-American protagonists. As a result, the first lineup of books published by Milestone was Static, which featured a teenager named Virgil Ovid Hawkins, a name that was inspired by an African-American student that was denied admission to a law school at the University of Florida in 1949. Now, as far as the inspiration behind Static, in an interview with World's Finest Online, largely considered to be one of the best sources of animated DC news, one of Static's co-creators, Dwayne McDuffie, stated that Static had been based heavily on the teenage version of Marvel's Spider-Man and was originally developed for a project that McDuffie had been working on for Marvel Comics that, for various reasons, never came to fruition. In addition to this, McDuffie also explained that he felt there was an unfulfilled need for a teenage character that audiences could relate to, since Spider-Man was now being written as an adult, and he felt that Static could actually fill that void. Now, having said that, Static made his debut in issue number 1 of his self-titled series in June of 1993, and which were introduced to Virgil Hawkins, a high school student that, much like Peter Parker, is somewhat of a nerd. Much like Peter, Virgil was depicted as having an affinity for science, but also has other interests including comic books, role-playing games, and science fiction. To this end, Virgil often found himself the victim of bullying, especially at the hands of a gang member named Francis Stone. Following a particularly violent encounter with Francis, Virgil accompanies a friend to Paris Island, one of the roughest parts of Dakota, where his friend gives him a gun in order to exact revenge on Francis. While Virgil does find himself unable to use the gun, he also finds himself in the middle of a gang war. And so during an attempt to suppress the brawl, police unleash tear gas that combined a chemical designed to allow law enforcement to track any perpetrator that escaped before being apprehended. However, things go awry when the tear gas proved lethal to almost everyone who was exposed due to a compound called quantum juice that had been added to the tear gas unbeknownst to the police. As a result, the 10% that did survive were transformed either into monsters or into superhumans, an event which was used by Milestone Media to jumpstart their superpowered community. Now, following this, Virgil found himself possessing the ability to manipulate electromagnetism. Shortly after discovering these abilities, Virgil decides to use them to become a superhero and adopts the moniker of Static. Throughout his solo series, Static would further mirror the character development seen in the early issues of Spider-Man as he struggled to maintain the balance between the responsibility of his powers and the good of society with the pressure of trying to be an ordinary teenager. In addition to this, the series would see Static engage in typical superhero adventures, which saw him battling supervillains which were also created by the Quantum Juice incident, including Francis Stone, who'd been given pyrokinetic powers and adopted the supervillain identity of Hot Streak. Now, in addition to the superhero adventures, Static series also dealt with real-life struggles that every teenager must see, including complicated romantic relationships with multiple girlfriends, as well as bullying, as his friend Rick Stone is subjected to torment by his fellow students after coming out as a homosexual. Now, where Milestone Comics would initially enjoy significant success due to their African-American-centered lineup, unlike many independent publishers at the time, they also had the publishing power and advanced printing process of DC Comics behind them, as well as a stable of popular and respected writers and artists as the driving creative force behind their books. In the early years of the company, it seemed as if Milestone founders' prediction that there was a gap in the market for minority characters was proven to be correct. However, shortly after the launch of Milestone Comics, the comic book industry as a whole suffered a crash during the 1990s in what we call the comic bust. This, coupled with the fact that Milestone's titles were not really accessible to anyone other than customers of the comic book specialty stores, as well as higher cover prices than competing books, proved to be obstacles that the young company was unable to overcome. As a result, Milestone Media saw their comic book sales continuing to slump throughout the mid-1990s and made the decision to cease all publications of their books in 1997, which saw its Static run come to an end with issue number 45. So in the year 2000, Static was given his own animated series titled Static Shock on Warner Brothers. The culmination culmination of an effort that had been in the works since the launch of Milestone Comics in 1993 to develop an animated series based on Milestone characters. To this end, the show debuted to tremendous success and was renewed for a second season merely a month after premiering. At the same time, the series owed its success to several factors, including the fact that it was fully integrated as part of the popular DC animated universe and included appearances from heroes such as Batman and Robin, Superman, and Green Lantern. While the show was targeted toward a younger audience than the Static comic book, its willingness to tackle heavier issues such as gang violence, drugs, homelessness, and racism made it popular among multitudes of fans from virtually all ages. As a result, the origin of Static in the animated series was largely the same as the comic, although there were some changes, such as the fact that Virgil's mother, a regular character in the comics, had died in the cartoon, a choice made by writers in order to focus on the relationship between Virgil and his father. In addition to this, Virgil would also make appearances in other DC animated shows, including Justice League Unlimited and Young Justice. And so due to the popularity of the animated series, DC Comics published a miniseries entitled Static Shock: Rebirth of the Cool by the original creative team of Dwayne McDuffie and John Paul Leon in 2001, marking Static Shock's return to comics after a 4-year absence. Although the animated series and a new miniseries would mark the height of Static's popularity, the character soon experienced another lengthy hiatus as Static Shock was canceled in 2004 after 4 seasons, despite continuing to garner decent ratings, with low merchandise sales being cited as the reason for cancellation. That said, 2008 saw new life for Static as well as several other Milestone characters as DC Comics executive editor Dan DiDio announced that the Milestone universe and characters would be returning, but this time as part of the mainline DC universe. Looking to find a way to achieve this, as part of Grant Morrison's Final Crisis event, the space-time continuum was threatened by Darkseid. In the aftermath of this, both the DC universe and the Milestone universe were met with extinction. However, Dharma, a character originally appearing in the Milestone series Hardware with the ability to warp reality, is able to merge the 2 universes into one. This act effectively absorbs the Milestone characters into the DC universe proper, as well as give them an entirely new continuity. In a miniseries titled Terror Titans, written by Sean McKeever, Static is kidnapped by the Terror Titans and forced to fight in the Darkseid Club under the influence of the anti-life equation. After being freed, Static joins the Teen Titans at the invitation of Wonder Girl in Teen Titans number 69, also under the writing of McKeever. During his time with the Teen Titans, Static helps defeat Jericho, a former member of the group and son of Deathstroke that had taken over Cyborg's body and used it in an attempt to kill the new and original Teen Titans. During this time, Static is able to overload Cyborg's body with a strong electrical charge, effectively saving the entire team. Following this, in Teen Titans number 79, now under the writing of Felicia Henderson, Static returns to his hometown of Dakota after he finds out that its citizens, including his sister Sharon, have been infected with a deadly disease. Upon his return, he attacks a lab that's creating the virus, but is ambushed by Holocaust, a Milestone villain with super strength, durability, stamina, and agility, as well as the power of pyrokinesis. Where Static is imprisoned at the lab alongside Aquagirl, Wonder Girl, and Bombshell before escaping and joining the rest of the Teen Titans to defeat Holocaust. In Teen Titans number 87, Felicia Henderson's final issue on the series saw Static accompanying the rest of the team to rescue Raven from another dimension where she's being held prisoner by Wild, a villain that was created out of Raven's life force while she was traveling across dimensions searching for her father Trigon. Where Static is able to locate Raven and the team is able to rescue her, Static also discovers something about Wild's dimension that stripped him of his powers. Now, where Cyborg convinces Virgil to go to Cadmus Labs in hopes of finding a way to get his powers back, following Felicia Henderson's departure from the title, the Teen Titans was taken over by writer J.T. Kroll and did not feature Static. That said, in 2011, DC Comics, in an effort to bolster sales, initiated a line-wide relaunch of their entire universe, meaning the Teen Titans, along with all of DC's other titles, were cancelled. Following the Flashpoint event, a new universe was created as DC relaunched 52 new series under the banner of the New 52, which saw almost all of the continuity that existed prior to this point wiped out. To this end, DC gave Static his second ongoing series as part of the launch of the New 52 in November of 2011 with Static Shock number 1, written by Scott McDaniel and John Razum. During this series, Virgil is fully in control of his powers and working for Star Labs in New York City after his family relocates from Dakota. In addition to this, the series features several new enemies such as Piranha, Sunspot, and Viral, as well as updated versions of classic Milestone villains such as Hotstreak and Dr. Nemo. However, despite Static's past popularity, Static Shock was one of the lowest selling New 52 titles and was cancelled during the first wave of cancellations following the relaunch, lasting only 8 issues. And so following this cancellation, Static makes an appearance in Teen Titans number 6, and it's implied that he's a member of the team, but does not make any further appearances in the book. That said, as far as the DC universe as it exists following Rebirth, we have yet to see Static appear, and it's unclear whether or not DC actually has any plans for the character in the immediate future. But with that being said, we're going to bring this to an end, and I'm really hoping that with this video, you kind of realize why I didn't really do anything before, because there's really not much to this guy's character. He's made like a handful of appearances, but people only really like it because of the animated series. So, yeah. Anyway, we're going to wrap this video up, and I will catch you all later. Peace.